Hi, this is Jennifer Norwood, and today we're going to be talking about Uber and Lyft, and really focusing on how Uber can retain the competitive advantage. Welcome to Week 5. So Uber was founded in 2009 in San Francisco by Garrett Camp and Travis Kalanick. It was originally named Uber Cab, and operations began in 2010 in San Francisco. They were forced to change their name when they had a cease and desist order brought upon them, and they just dropped the cab out of it. But these gentlemen found an opportunity in a tight transportation industry, kind of developed out of a need that was currently not being met by the industry players. This need was, frustrations that, riders would experience waiting for taxis, especially, at the end of an event or a holiday such as New Year's, where it was difficult to get a taxi. The taxis and the available means of transportation was so limited, especially at night. So they developed a smartphone app that allowed customers to hail a ride at any time, really focusing on kind of the black car and limo sector when they started. So currently, Uber is located in 70 countries worldwide and is gaining a valuation of nearly $70 billion, and its business is continuing to grow. Lyft was founded in 2007, and funny enough, it came about before Uber. It was designed as a side project, and it was called Zimride. It was developed by Logan Green and John Zimmer. And they met kind of through Facebook on opposite ends of the coast. And they both had this idea about a share ride market that was really for long distance. So they launched this, and it was really marketed to college campuses and to those students who really needed to get rides home for the holidays. So Lyft was born in 2012 from Zimride, from the opportunities that Green and Zimmer had in their vision, and that's to improve the people's lives with the world's best transportation, and in doing so to change cities to be designed around people and not cars. Today they're worth $7.5 billion, and they're operating in more than 600 cities in 46 states, including D.C. Their long-term goal is to provide people with an alternative to owning their own cars. So they developed an app that appealed not only to the consumer, but to the driver who could use his or her own car to actually be the driver for these consumers. So at this time, Uber was really just providing black cars and limos, and it was really quite unique because Lyft really brought a change about this in the industry. So some side-by-side kind of comparisons. They both operate nationally. However, Uber is international. They operate on a 24/7 kind of working time frame, utilizing the app. Although, in smaller cities, it might be harder to get those rides, but definitely in the bigger cities, you can get an Uber or a Lyft at any time. They have it's an on-demand with only a few minutes waiting time for pickup, and they're pretty close to these two. For Uber, their cars must be at least 2002 or newer, in good condition with no cosmetic damage, have to have working AC, and pass the vehicle inspection. For Lyft, the cars must be 2004 or newer, have 4 doors, no body damage, have working AC, and pass vehicle inspections. Both offer different types of car services that are available, but they're comparable to each other. And really the biggest difference comes into the culture. Uber has a poor culture wrought with scandals, aggressiveness, and sort of a cutthroat type of operation, where Lyft's culture is more kind, environmentally friendly, and community-oriented. In the past, I've also seen that a lot more women prefer Lyft to Uber, and I really think that comes about because of the scandals that Uber has faced. So the functional level of strategies and organization, and really where I think Uber needs to focus on making a difference. First is marketing efforts focused on brand building and the perceived differentiation from rivals. Their brand building is really important. Uber did not spend a whole lot of time on this when they first came about. They really used by word of mouth as their way to kind of build their brand. But really, in light of what has occurred, they need to focus on building these brands. I mean, it was easy in the beginning because they gave an option when there was very limited options for consumers to get a ride at any time, day or night, short notice, and on demand, whereas taxis, you had to wait for a taxi to even come around, and then you had to compete with the people waiting for them, as well as you need to book in advance a car to make sure that you got one in advance, whereas this, allowed people to do it easily from their homes, from the bars, from their workplace, just book a car and they would see it there available in, 3 to 4 minutes to deal with. But based on the scandals, they really have suffered a lot. So in looking at this, their culture under Kalanick was really aggressive, and it began in 2009. They had scandals that focused around sexual harassment, fraudulent behavior, law breaking. They used a gray ball tool, and they were breaking Apple's rules for apps. Really, it kind of started in 2015, where Apple's Cook called in Kalanick to their office to really discuss what they were doing. And so what Uber was doing was they were secretly identifying and tagging iPhones even after the Uber app had been deleted and the devices erased. So a fraud detection maneuver that kind of violated Apple's privacy guidelines. And this really showed the type of leader that Kalanick was. He openly disregarded many rules and norms. He backed down only when he was caught or cornered. He flouted transportation and safety regulations. He kind of bucked against the entrenched competitors and capitalized on legal loopholes and gray areas to gain kind of business advantage. And he has been credited with creating this new transportation industry, but crossing the line was not really one-off for him. He was willing to do whatever it took to win, and at whatever cost, which is really a trait that kind of set the company into crisis. Mark Cuban, who is the Dallas Mavericks owner and billionaire investor who mentored him, said his biggest strength was that he'll run through a wall to accomplish his goal. At the same time, his biggest weakness was that he'll run through a wall to accomplish his goals. So that's kind of the best way to describe him. He had his values were he took the 14 Amazon leadership kind of view. He really liked the way that looked and built his values. But some of these included being super pumped, always be hustling, be themselves, making bold bets, being obsessive about the customer. Really, his focus and top priority was to achieve growth and revenue targets really at any cost. Those were the primary things that made a big deal. So the culture for them and kind of building their brand, they have to change. So one of the things that Uber has done is to launch similar ads like Lyft, utilizing older community members who kind of give a great account of how Uber enhanced their lives. They're working on building their brand. Additionally, they brought in a Harvard-inspired university where they're addressing their biggest issues. Some of their biggest issues involve senior executives not working together, and the solution was getting the executives working together as a team. The new CEO of Uber also brought in and said cultures needs to be written from the bottom up. So in order to address their branding, they need to address their culture. They need to be more transparent, and this is one area that they really have refused to act. But really focusing on their brand, they need to get out and work with the community, do the right things that are going to help really enforce and be the company they want people to believe them to be. So these are some things that they need to really work on as far as their branding. They also need to focus on the marketing of the brand and really put some value and money into that area. Next, The hiring and employee development strategies is designed to ensure that employees act in a manner that is consistent with the image that the company is trying to project to the world. So some of the things above that I already discussed are also applicable to this. But just a couple things I wanted to focus on directly was that they need to really do better treatment of their employees. Every complaint should be evaluated and investigated, and maybe not the most basic stuff, but anything that's serious, and they need to really respond back to their employees. They need to make personnel accountable for their actions. They can't just have employees that kind of roll in and do whatever, and then show up. I mean, this cutthroat and aggressive business is really set up to really hurt people and kind of almost bring in infighting to get on top of each other. They need to develop some performance reviews. Employees need to be evaluated to see where they're doing well, where they're not well. They can't just, ignore the top performers just because they're performing well and let them treat people however they want to be treated. I mean, this is really a big one. Additionally, they need to ensure that all complaints are addressed. They need to ensure diversity is in the company and make it public. They say, one of the things that Kalanick said was that after the report came out from Susan Fowler, the blog, that no attempts were made, and that it was not really an environment that was friendly to women. He disclosed, and he said that 15.1% of the Uber's engineering and project management and scientist roles were filled by women, and that those numbers hadn't changed substantially over this past year when Susan made this complaint. Well, it's not enough to just respond. They need to really celebrate the diversity among, and this is not just for women, but all the diversity. They need to rebuild trust with the employees and hold true to their values and promises. I mean, they can't be in a party mode and living it up. They're running a business that their people's lives depend on it. And, one of the signs was, that really made a big deal was they had an aggressive workplace culture that kind of spilled out in 2015 in Las Vegas, where there was bouts of drinking and gambling. There was employees using cocaine in the bathroom and at private parties. There was a manager who was groping several of the female employees, and they had even an employee hijack a private shuttle bus filled with friends and took it for a joyride. That's not the public image that they want the company to see. So there needs to be a zero tolerance on this. They need to really buckle down, put their head down, and focus. The new CEO, Dara Koreski, he kind of took to LinkedIn with a medium-style blog post that promises a new company culture norms, and they're aimed at regaining the trust of the employees and the return of the positive public opinion. The new norms were shared with all of the Uber employees at an all-staff meeting. So they know that they have a problem. They're really working on fixing it. They scaled back a lot of what they were doing. They were doing too many things, had too many hands and too many pots. They were going to launch a new kind of driver app that was fostered to perfect the efficient ride and reduce the chance that the driver would drive for Lyft. So they really needed to scale that back. Additionally, they were doing food delivery and carpooling services that were a little bit more. So they kind of pulled it back, and they're working to be more transparent. They're really working to regain kind of how the company is viewed, how it views itself in relation to its employees and people, as well as how the public views them. And they really have pledged to make sure that they're addressing those issues. So these are some ways that I really think that Uber needs to work in order to contain its competitive advantage. The scandal brought about a movement where people were saying delete the Uber app, and 500,000 people deleted the app when this happened. So These are some things that they can do and some strategies. Thank you very much for your time, and I really do appreciate you listening. Here's a list of my references.